you suffered way more than a lot of people on the bike. Like what's in your drawers and banks and filing cabinets is as much as most people at our age, if not more. Do you use it? Do you think about it?
I don't know. Apparently not, right?
It's time to start opening up.
Maybe
I
a
guess
tattoo,
so.
bro. Maybe we tattoo a filing cabinet like on your hand.
No, just a wrench and
We'll get you a little-
screwdriver.
I've
Little
got
gold
some,
charm for your gold
I've
chain.
got some ideas.
Maybe a postie,
I'm not
like a
opposed.
teardrop of like a hammer right here, bro.
Yeah.
Welcome to BrainStoke. I'm Tom Telford. We are in the BrainStoke studio. Look at the backdrop. So much Riz in this house.
Big time.
It's amazing. Preston Niederhauser is here. We have Matthew Lefthand, our newest BrainStoke athlete ambassador, and Blair Perkes is with us. Welcome, gentlemen, to this roundtable. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Blair, first of all, how many times in a week have you driven to Grand Junction and back to Northern Utah?
What's your PR, bro?
Yeah, what
Setting
is
records.
what is the PR?
I think I did it twice one time, but
Only twice?
it's 16 hours.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of car time.
Yeah.
I'm getting used to the show on the car. Just turn on
Is
the
the
tour.
iPad sitting on the dashboard?
It's my phone, luckily. But
I might have had the iPad on the dashboard this morning because I had to drive south, and I'm in a serious race for our fantasy tour league, fighting first and second. Anyway, I took a hard L today, but Matthew,
Yep.
happy to see you across the table again.
Good to be here again.
I'm trying to think. Was it last fall when we interviewed you?
It's like the end of summer.
Okay, so almost around a year ago.
Yeah, right around.
So you're the newest BrainStoke ambassador.
Yes.
And you fit the mold. So we're happy to have you as someone who embraces all of the 5 S's. So
Maybe. We don't know.
Daily. I leave a couple out.
I mean, he's not posting a fourth for sure.
there's one that might be a little less than others.
Hashtag love. Love from Lefty. Oh, man.
so I've been on Lefty's will. I've been in his draft a couple times recently. I got ridden right off of his will on Tuesday night. In the last couple minutes, he cracked me. So that's what you're known for on the bike, is just riding people off your will.
It's notorious at this point, it seems like. So.
No, it's awesome. It's fun to have you. This past Tuesday night, we have a group ride here in Mountain Green. I think we had 6 or 7 BrainStoke kits in attendance, which was really fun to see in a group of 23 or 24.
Yeah.
So it's coming together.
That was
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Good ride.
It's funny at the top of Hardscrabble, we're just soft pedaling, and Blair goes, 2 of the top 3, bro.
I really hurt the average though this week.
Oh,
Squats
man.
did it in.
I'm in
Speaking
trouble.
of Preston getting in trouble on Tuesday night's ride, we got to give a little shout out to our friends at Mountain Ops,
Oh, dude.
Trevor Farnes.
Yeah.
They had a 10-year anniversary this week. Preston goes to the big party that Trevor invited, our team to. And how many squats did you end up doing?
So we started the morning. I mean, he's all about the four quadrants: spiritual, mental, social. What is it? And then service. Forgive me, Trevor. But so we did this physical. We did an hour workout in the parking lot. There was a little over 200 of us. Oh. And when you have 200 people, there's only so many types of workouts you can do.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of lunges, squats, jump squats, etc. So I think we did. I think he said we were doing 150 squats over the course of each rotation. So I had a lot of squats in my legs, and when you don't squat once but a year, I paid the price to become. But
Cyclists don't squat.
not mid-season, at least.
I love it. Anyway, that was cool for Mountain Ops. I think Mountain Ops is still in several of the BrainStoke bottles on rides. You know, what's our favorite?
Tiger's Blood.
Tiger's Blood.
Ignite.
Ignite.
My son asks me for that pretty regularly.
Thanks, Trevor and Mountain Ops. It's
Yep.
awesome. Matthew, before we move on from Matthew, I just want to mention a couple things. Preston mentioned this. Matthew joining us. Matthew's background, it's super cool for BrainStoke to have him because Matthew, by profession, is a mental health therapist. Amazing, you know, spends a lot of time sitting with people who are in some of their lowest points of their lives and helps them rebuild and design the mental tools that are needed for them to flourish in life. And it just makes sense that one, he's in mental health. Two, he shaves his legs. Three, he prioritizes his bike over sleeping and most other things. So for our listeners, go find Matthew on Strava. Just check it out. Nickname Lefty, last name Lefthand. If you look at Matthew's Strava, you're going to recognize a pretty special and unique human on the bike. Most pros year to date may have 10,000 miles, 11,000 miles in their legs. Matthew, how many miles are in your legs in 2024?
Coming up on 18,000, 17,800 something, I think.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah. Wild.
But they're all Zwift miles, so they're fake. That's what I hear.
Such a Zwifty.
Yeah.
Yeah, not a Swifty, a Zwifty.
No.
Yeah.
I leave the Swiftiness to my wife.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that they're real because on rides, they tend to do their thing.
Yep.
So,
They show their thing through. So
for sure.
no, I'm a huge component of the online writing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, mental health. Last time I was here, I was just had started my own private practice, and so now I supervise a couple interns as well. So expanding out in that way, which is fun to coach people in that field as well. So
Yeah. That's awesome. Stoked to have you. The topic of the night is part of the reason why we wanted to have Matthew come, because it is really diving into the mental components of biking and training and racing. And although it's always part of the dialogue and the discussion that we have, Blair actually posed the question that really is sparking why we're here tonight. So Blair, do you mind just before we dive into the topic, just tell us again a little bit about you, what you're doing in life, your age, what's going on, because I think it will frame the discussion and what we're going to talk about tonight. But don't leave out the fact that between our last time you were on and now, you got your pro card. So you got to talk about that. Pro!
Not actually pro though.
Stop
right?
it. Pro's a pro.
It's true. I
It's
did
true.
get the pro card, so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, say more. Let's talk about it.
Let's see where to start. So last time we talked was in St. George, February. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So obviously I'm still a nursing home administrator. I had a lot of plans this year, still have a lot of plans, lots of things that are going in the right direction, a lot of things that didn't go how I expected them to. Going into the year, I expected that the one facility I was running was going to just start to get going exactly how I wanted it to. Things started moving pretty good in November, and that facility started to settle in, and it's been doing really well for a long time. And then my boss approached me and asked if I wanted to take on another facility that's 5 minutes away from my other one. And it was in the same condition that my other facility was when I first started, which was in shambles. And so I took that on April 1st, not expecting the stresses that would come with
Two
that.
jobs for the price of one.
Right.
I love your employer.
It's awesome.
Hashtag PAX.
Yes.
Hashtag Mark Hancock. Awesome guys.
Yes. But it's been a lot to try and handle it all. I raced, quite a few races in between. I did Moab Rocks, which was an awesome mountain bike race. I kind of started feeling my legs there, and that was before I took on the other facility.
Yeah.
And then I just did a few little small races here and there, but then I took on the facility, and I didn't realize exactly where it was, and I was spending a lot more time in the facilities than I expected to be spending. And my wife and I went to Europe for a couple weeks, right in between there, right at the end, and we had a really good time there. Didn't have to think too much about work, luckily, but coming back, fitness was at an all-time low, and mental state of trying to catch back up from those 2 weeks of taking the work off was a lot. So right after that is actually when I submitted for the pro card. And
That's awesome.
they were like, yeah, USA Cycling hooked it up. So that was going to allow me to race worlds and any of the national championships that I want to race in for at least cross country or mountain biking. Let's see, what else? So let's see. The races that I've done in the last little bit, I did Wasatch 50, which was an awesome race.
Yeah.
Where I was with you.
Yeah, it was a great day.
I broke a spoke. I was feeling pretty good. I guess I should go back and talk about the word of the day that I want to use.
Yeah.
I feel like every race that I've done since I've taken on like this job, and I've been in the job now for over a year, I can't get in the mental space for a race. It always feels like I'm thinking about work. I'm thinking about what's going on at home. For some reason, I just can't focus on the wheel in front of me. And so I've got this limiter that's pinging. I hit a certain amount of watts and my heart rate, and all of a sudden my body says, hey, this is all you got. Don't go further. And then right as I hit that point, my mind tells me, hey, something's going on at work. Or, some patients having some struggles, or employee is having problems. So that's where my mind goes after I hit that point. And then after that, everything's shut off. And I can't really, it takes me, a solid hour to really come back to it and be like, what am I doing? Like, let's go. Let's push it. We got to get back in the game. This last race that I did, well, I guess 2 races ago, Silver Rush 50. It's in Leadville. It's a 50-mile race. You have about 12,000 feet of vert that you climb. Maybe it's not quite 12,000. I can't remember how much it was. It was a lot. But it's straight up, straight down, straight up, straight down, straight up, and back. So it's pretty brutal. And that first climb, when things really got going, I 10 minutes in, and I hit that spot, and I was like, this is kind of weird. And I just watched everyone ride away from me, and never saw them again. So it was frustrating, because a couple of years ago, when I didn't have a stressful job, things were going good, and I could race as hard as I wanted to go. That was my focus, was the bike. So it's a different transition. But that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
So you don't have the answers.
I don't have the answers.
I think I do, though, Preston.
I know you do.
Ketone IQ.
Ketone IQ. Is there
Everything
can you
can
OD?
be solved.
Can you OD on ketone IQ?
No.
No.
The more, the better. Blair?
If you can handle dish soap, you can handle ketone IQ.
Yeah.
Why were you not taking ketone IQ?
I honestly should have been.
Is it in your briefcase at your office?
It's not, but it needs to
When
be
you
now.
get stressed at work? Like,
Oh, we've solved this.
yeah.
We're done. We did it.
We'll come back to ketone IQ. That's a joke, but yeah, I mean, there's so much here. When Blair sent this out on our text thread to our group of ambassadors, there was a lot of discussion that went back and forth, and it actually spurred on why we wanted to gather, today and talk as a group, because this is really the crux of, I think, training and racing to a degree. If you are married, if you have a real job, if you have a life outside of just training and racing. So we wanted to unpack this whole question of what is going on when my body doesn't respond the way that I want it to, that I'm used to it doing. Is that something that's going on physically? Is it something that's going on mentally? What is it? So I have a lot of thoughts on this, but let's start, if you don't mind, Matthew, with you because as a mental health professional, as someone, you know, mental health can go from someone who is sick or injured mentally. In my opinion, that's like that's a level of it. There's another level of wellness, which is I'm doing some maintenance to keep my mental health good. And then there's like mental performance. And I shouldn't like put my hand lower. It's not that one is lower than the other, but you do at times play performance.
Yeah.
You know, psychiatrist, psychologist, therapist. What do you feel like from your perspective of someone who trains races, but also sits on the couch with people and says, I understand, you know, what you're describing?
Yeah. I've met with several athletes, high school or adult athletes in that same place where they're coming in for enrichment, essentially. That's kind of what we call it in counseling, is you're trying to make your life better. It's good, but something's holding you up from progressing how you want to. Which, when you posed the question, I was like, that's a great question. And I think I'd said something online of like, there's so much context and so many pieces to it. And that's what I feel like I do most of the day with people, is help them walk through the muddiness of life and try and make sense of all of the pieces together. Because oftentimes we want a simple answer. And not saying that you wanted a simple answer, but that's kind of what we'd like to simplify it down to, is like, what am I not eating right? How am I not sleeping right? Like all the athlete things we get into. I'm not taking enough ketones, you know, not doing enough squats on those nights.
What do you mean, in and out isn't good for you?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll get into that later. But I think looking at it and saying all of these domains of your life, how are they playing into each other, you know? And I love that we're sitting down and having this conversation here, because I already feel like we're going to have so much better of a conversation than Blair just asking that on text message and then us answering random things kind of like we did, because already hearing more background, like some things come straight to mind, like spillover. And we talked about it before you were even here as we were chatting a little bit. Spillover is huge, and there's things you can do about spillover and chronic stress or whatever it may be. And so those are things that we get into and say, okay, this is a piece of it, but let's not just say it is spillover, that you're just having this stressful thing. Maybe that's a symptom, or maybe is it the root cause, or is it an outcome of something else? And that's where I feel like I say I do with most people all the day, is trying to trace back, not to find the root, because I've often found you just walk yourself in a circle. You guys ever done that with a problem where you're just like, okay, I'm back to where I started? The one that gets me all the time is like, I take this medication for this, and I take this medication for this, and I take this, and eventually it's like, and this causes headaches, which is what you took the medication for, and you go in this big circle. I think life is often like that you can go in this huge circle. So you're not looking for the answer, you're looking for, I think, the answers, which is what I hope we can do here and then model for other people, is what are some things that may be contributing to this, and how can you change them up?
So do you define spillover as when he mentally hits a wall during a ride and he starts to immediately think of work? Is that spillover?
Yep, that's the definition of spillover.
Okay.
And in my mind, that's a symptom that you're not, could be not dealing with the stress of that thing as well as you could be.
The work stress, or
yes,
the effort?
the work stress.
Okay.
And so it's going to come up somewhere. You know, the like classic example is you go to lay down at night, and then all of the things that you worry about at work come into your mind. Very similar type of situation. Does that happen too? I've seen a little sometimes. And so, yeah, to me all the time, that's what I get with clients and say, you need to find, we're going to work on a way to find how to deal with that so it doesn't come up when you don't want it to. If you're not managing that stress outside of just managing the tasks, because we think, oh, well, I'm doing everything I can, or I'm doing the work, I'm accomplishing what I need to, but the stress itself is something. And if you don't deal with the stress itself, it's going to pop up in different places. And so that's what I mean when I say spillover.
Yeah. So in terms of stress is a common spillover, I think, that we all experience then, probably, right?
Work stress, family stress. Yeah.
So Matthew, how do you deal with it? Because I mean, you're doing all of the same things we're all doing. You're a family man, you're a husband and a father, you work full time, you ride a bike a lot, and you perform. So what do you do? How does it work for you? How do you manage the stress how do you avoid spillover?
I just bike it all the way. Right?
You just bike it away.
No. I think there's several things that I do. And a lot of it is about prioritizing your life. So figuring out, are you spending time and energy where you want to? So there's some like logistics to that. But then I think there's also other things like exercising, eating good, sleeping right. Everyone jokes that I don't sleep enough, but I haven't died yet, so I think I'm doing okay-ish. Sleep is a huge part of it. Are you getting enough rest? And so there's all these different domains, but I think there's one thing that I add as a mental health therapist that's different than those typical type of answers, which comes down to how much energy and when are you giving that energy to it. Essentially what I'm hearing you say is that my work stress is robbing my bike performance in that moment. And so because you're not managing that somewhere, it's going to pop up somewhere, and that's where it's popping up. And it also pops up on the pillow and in other places as well. So how can you make room for that? And I make room for that. I'm a huge, I call it double dipper or something like that, that like, when I'm biking, I'm usually not just biking. It's either social, or I'm listening to a podcast, or I'm doing some work or something, especially because if you ride as much as I do, and then if you do events and everything, like you spend a lot of time in zone 2 where you're just kind of chilling and whatnot. And it's a great time to work through things and to process through them. So I use that time, but then I also have other times. I don't overwork myself. I make my schedule so that I have times to work through some of the work things that are going on or process through those things and make dedicated time for those, or bifurcated, dedicated time where you're doing 2 things at once, which I think is oftentimes best for us when we're like, if your mental, I think all athletes have this, your mental engine is just like on fire most of the day until you do something, and then it slows down a little bit. I don't know if you guys feel that. And so it's like, if you can get on the bike, if you can listen to some music, if you can listen to a podcast, if you can have a conversation with someone, everything slows down a little bit and you can deal with it. So that's my main thing, is do something and purposefully process through what I need to.
I have so much to say right now. But the crux of what I wanted to say and what I was feeling when you sent the text out, Blair, was I just went immediately back to my early 20s, And so, I think about Blair as, my little brother. And so when I was reading it, my heart was going out to you, of someone who was being vulnerable and real about, hey, I'm struggling right now with this thing. And so I wanted to have a conversation about it, because I feel like the same question that you're asking, and I was not pro. I was never a Blair on the bike, but I was someone who liked to be out and liked to push myself. And I remember the collision of life when all that I wanted to do and accomplish personally, the athletic pursuits, had a major collision with real life stress. I even, I remember the journal entry writing, today I had a big light bulb moment where I realized I'm no longer living for me. And that actually happened a little bit later when I had kids, when I had Jackson, when that kind of came along. But it was very hard for me to think through that in my early 20s, because this is going to sound strange, but I'm going to say it. I'm someone who believes that anything is possible. If I just put my mind to it and I come up with a plan, I believe I can do and achieve whatever I want. And that was very hard for me to take that belief system and to start to recognize, what is the thing that I can't put a finger on that's limiting? So when you called it a limiter, I was like, I know the limiter. I know this. So my realization, and Matthew, alluded to it, is that I do believe everything is possible in this life, but I do believe that every human, they only have a certain amount of energy. So as much as I believe I can push Tom's ceiling very high in what I can do and achieve, what I believe is the potential of Tom, my potential is huge, but I do believe that I only have a certain amount of energy that I can put towards getting there. And so when you talked about a limiter, I was like, wow, I wish I was Blair's age and recognize so young And athletics have allowed you to recognize that thing about what a limiter is, you know? And so when I think about energy, and I think about it every day, how much energy am I going to give towards this thing? How much am I going to give towards this? And for most people who know me, Preston spent enough time to know that the way that I think about a day is that I'm going to make deposits into 5 things every day. Because if any one of those gets robbed, I'm going to be like, I didn't do it. So 1 is physical. I'm going to do something physical every day. The second is relationships. The second is my pocketbook. I need to make money every day. I'm a provider. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I got to provide. The 4th thing is some sort of spirituality, you know, in the way that I do that. And then the 5th is just mentally. And a lot of times, BrainStoke, the 5 S's, you can do 3 of these at the same time. Mm-hmm. You can go outside in the sun, you can sweat, and you can feel stoked, right? And so I tend to think about, you know, things that way. And so when I put deposits towards something, I have to recognize, and Matthew nailed this, if I'm going to put deposits in the physical bank and I put too many of them in, it's likely that relationships are going to have a little bit less.
Opportunity cost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you just have to be real about that you only have so much energy. You know, if we were looking at Whoop, like the Whoop energy score, there's a strain score, right? Which I think is cool. But if you were really to think about that, like Blair's tank is 100. And if you're going to put 40 of the 100 towards the bike, then you only have 60 left. And if work takes 50, relationships are going to get this, and then this, and then this. And so I think there's really 2 things, in my opinion, when you sent that out that I was thinking about. 1, either Blair doesn't have the training physically to do and respond in the moment, which I actually don't think is right. I think you are fit, right? I think it's the other part of this conversation, which is the ability to compartmentalize the stress. And what do you do with that? And I think the first thing, in my opinion, is you have to be real about, of all the energy stores that you have, you're now recognizing that to be really successful in business, in a career, it's going to take a lot of the 100. I don't know what the number is, but if you can learn that in your young 20s, how much you're willing to take out of the energy bank so that you still have enough left to be fulfilled on the other things of your life, man, you're so far ahead to be able to just recognize that. Because, and Matthew alluded to this, and forgive me, I'm speaking too much, but he talked about Goggins, David Goggins. We all love him. He's a god, right? The guy can just run through walls and do it tomorrow and do it in the middle of it, like all the time. But I think if you spoke with David Goggins, he would say, kill yourself, run through all the walls, but there's still only so much energy you have before you're going to destroy your physical ability to run through the walls and do all the mental things, you know? And so the tank only has so much in it. But I think that's important to just kind of know, like, what is your tank of energy and where are you putting it? And I have more to say just about how to access in the moment, but what are your other thoughts?
Can I piggyback on just 2 things real quick?
Yeah.
Whenever I bring up Goggins, I always add like some pre-explanation of don't make him the end all be all. Like his life alone is an example of what happens when you put everything on the table for one thing or a couple things, you know. His family life from a young age, but even currently, has been kind of messy and everything, and he has a lot of sacrifices. So, but the other thing was the energy. I actually have a tool, and it's interesting that you use that term and you use those scales so much, because this tool that I use to help clients and myself is a visual way. And if you can do it visually, that's great. You can do it number-wise. You could imagine it however you want to. It's called an eco map. You can search that up later, ECO map. And all you do really simply is put yourself in the middle of a page. You put the things in your life that you're putting energy into. And then what I have people do is draw an arrow of how much you're giving to that thing. And I think this is a cool addition to it, is how much is it giving back to you as well. And you do that for every single thing. And you could do it, they all add up to 100. I tell most people, you're going to feel this out as you do it more times. You need to learn how to do this. You need to put time into really seeing, because I think we're not honest enough the first time about how much energy something is really taking from us or giving from us, especially because we want to be superheroes. We want to like have 100% to give to work and 100% to give to the bike and 100% to give to the kid. And it's hard to admit that you can't give 100 to everything. You have to choose where to give your energy to, which honestly is like, it's a struggle for me because I came into loving biking so much because the fitness came so much, but I have a family, I have a wife, I have kids, I earn for the family. And so, especially now that I found fitness, I would love to go to this bike race and that bike race and go outside and ride every day. But I am constantly choosing my family over biking because it's more important to me. The priority is there in my family. And then at times I choose the biking and that's a give and take. So you do those arrows, and then it's a visual way for you to look at and see where is taking too much, where am I giving and it's not giving back, and how am I going to adjust this? I have someone go through with another color of pen or pencil and mark where they're going to change it.
There's so much there. But before I comment, just add to that. Preston, what are you thinking as you hear this?
I mean, I'm failing the eco map.
I'm so far
Preston,
gone. Preston, it's
Preston
okay.
runs a successful career. I mean, you know, too, like it takes deposits out of the energy bank.
Yeah, personally, as I'm thinking through, my life, and both of your illustrations were clicking and making sense. The total to 100 or the eco map, but I shouldn't get too vulnerable on this one. But I've managed to figure out work. I think for the most part.
Yeah.
I run my own business in a way. It's unique. It's different, but because of the flexibility of my career, it's allowed me to do some of the other things that I like to do, like ride a bike or whatever. So that's been a huge benefit. But I'm still dealing with other things. I'm failing in health. And it's not very public, but I'm struggling. And I'm like, where do I need to cut back to get it right? That's the overwhelming personal thought I have right now.
Yeah.
Is like, how do I figure this out? The overwhelming theme of the last 30 minutes is just figuring out this balance. And it changes every time. I mean, I think about Blair and where he's at in his career, and then where Matthew's at, and then maybe where we're at, and maybe where you're at. We're all in these little bit different spots. And so that balance is always going to be ebbing and flowing and changing. Sure. And I guess that's why maybe these exercises are really good to do this eco map regularly.
Because there's no right answer. There's no right balance.
Constantly changing, right?
As soon as you figure it out, it's different. The code changes on you.
It is. I think there is differences, but there's two or three things that I just want to share that are anecdotally that I have been huge for me. And so if that's okay, I'll just share them and you guys can chime in, but so Matthew said something so brilliant and so wise that I just want to go back to for a second. And I'm glad that he said it, but he said return. He used the word return a couple times, right? So I was on a podcast recently, father, son, it's called Saxton on the Pod. And at the end, they asked me a couple questions and I got a little candid, and in my what I mentioned on that to them, even as it came out of my mouth, it was very surprising. And it hit me. And then when you texted, I was like, I'm gonna have to get into this with Blair, So I have a bit of a reputation with those people who know me, even business people, that I don't like people. Right? It sounds horrible to say that. And it's not that I'm anti-people, but I'm anti-time that is not spent in productive ways. I've become very I'm almost like I get angry at times about it. And it's because in my 20s, what I started to recognize, when you're self-employed and your every minute relies on you making money, or if you're in a very demanding career, what you start to recognize quickly is that your time is very valuable. Now, when you add kids to the mix, and now you have this realization of my time is not only invaluable for my career, but now I have to provide for children and a spouse who's home with them. And we're so used to it in Utah culture, you know, in family culture. But if you really take a step back for a second and just think, how weird is it that one person works for several mouths? I mean, it's cool. I love my kids. I want to provide for them. But if you take a step back for a second and just kind of think of that about energy stores, one person lowers the energy bank to provide for others. Now, it's not that mom, or if it's a husband who's providing for kids, I get it. But it is an interesting thing to just kind of think through. So in this podcast, when I kind of got candid, basically what I was saying to them was, I don't say yes to most things on purpose because I don't believe they give me a return on my mind. And my comment really is, I say no to most things so that I can say yes to the very narrow that I demand a return on, right? And you just kind of think through that for just a second. When you start to protect your time and to get away from being a yes man, or a, you know, another way of saying it is that, well, he's a nice guy, right? If you really dive into the psychology of nice guy, it's someone who they say yes to everything because they don't want to disappoint anyone. And then they wake up one day and they hate their life because they don't get to spend their energy on what they want. They've just been accommodating to everybody else, right? So one of my, you know, just advice items for you, Blair, is get very specific on what you say yes to so that the energy bank is only being spent on the very few things that you value most that give you the return. So how does that apply to the bike? Well, if you can get rid of all the things that don't give you the return, that's at least a start. It's gonna allow you to maintain the energy and your focus on the things that you really want to spend time on and that give you the return. I believe, right? And I know we love biking and the whole sport of it and all the things, but what I get the most from biking is this. The 3 inches between my ears are so strong and confident. That sounds arrogant even saying it out loud to you all right now, but I know what I'm capable of doing partially because what I can do on the bike. And I don't win races. I'm not a pro, but because I'm capable of suffering for a long time on the bike. And the spillover, to use his words, of confidence on the bike is I can go to work, I can go home and take care of my family, and I can suffer a lot doing those other things because the bike has taught me suffering. Isn't that an awesome return on investment?
Yeah.
To have confidence in the ability to deal with hard things on all other areas of our life. So one of those things is that get really clear on what you're willing to say yes to and really get good at being kind but saying no to things that you just aren't getting the return on. So that's one thing. I know that's a long, add additional comments on that.
That's good.
That's
good. I love
so
it.
I'm sitting here and I'm thinking of Tom's wife. And so I've been on many a family vacation with the Telfords, many date nights, and Tom finds no value in card games. Sorry, Liza. It was just funny. So we don't play card games, which is great actually, because I don't get a great kick out of it.
But to apply this of what Preston's saying, okay. And again, this is going to say so much about Tom, where people are going to be like, he's such a jerk, But
The truth comes out.
But here it is, right? Here it comes. My circle of who I really want to spend time with is very small. Not that I don't like people, right? Don't take it that way. But I will not spend more than 5-10 minutes max with people who are going to pull out of my energy reserve and give me nothing in return. How's that for using people? Right? But think about it, like, who do you spend your time with and what do you read? My point to the guys on Saxton on the pod is in a world right now where people do this all day long and their energy bank is going zzz, by staring at a phone, that's total BS to me, right? And then they're like, I'm not getting anything done. I'm not meeting my goals. I'm not happy in my life. It's like, because you allowed yourself to spend energy bank on things that gave you no return on investment. In fact, it actually pulled away. It was a negative return, right? So I just got very clear early on about how am I going to allow energy to be spent in my life. I got to say one more thing. Okay, this is another one just for me. Because I was the guy early in my 20s who I couldn't turn it off, right? And the problem was that I started making good money, and it reinforced by making good money to never stop working. And so I was like, oh man, like it was reinforcing like, oh, I work around the clock and dollars are coming in. And I'm like, this is the best, right? I mean, it was cool. Like I was making good money. Well, the problem is that one day I woke up and I'm like, I'm making good money, but do I resent some of my own life? Like I'm not riding the bike like I want to. My friends and I were going to like really cool races, half Ironmans in Hawaii, and I was just depleted. I was like, I don't have any energy for it, you know? So money and financial success can blind you also. As much as we need it to survive and we like it, energy reserve, like coming down, right? So I had to recalibrate, like, how was I going to spend the time in the energy reserve to make sure other parts of my life that I valued, the return, were occurring? So here was my hack. I had to start learning how to manage time. And so I started to business journal constantly. And these guys know it. I have business journals. Like if you went and looked at mine, it's over there on the, on the banister. I put it all in there because I don't want to forget stuff. I want to make sure that I'm on track. I don't want one person in my business life to say, Tom dropped the ball. He forgot something, right? I don't like that idea. And because I value that, I can't not focus on journaling that way. But when I close the journal at the end of the day, I've given myself permission to leave work behind, and now I can go do whatever. I'm now a husband. I'm doting over my wife. I'm flirting with her. I'm getting on my bike and I'm being present on my Tuesday night. I've given myself permission because it's all there. It's in the business journal and I'm forgetting nothing. It's in there. I know what I'm doing tomorrow. It's all in the journal. It's in the planner. But I then started to take it a step further. Preston knows this. Guys who ride with me, they're like, you're such a Chester. What's with you and your gold chains, right? But what I started to recognize was that I could close business and I could go get on the bike and I could go ride and I still wasn't mentally present, right? I was still like, I was out there, but they were, guys call it junk miles. Like I'm just out on the bike and some days I just want to listen to music and like do whatever. But I wanted to take it a step further of what do I flip in my mind as a switch to now I'm bike guy. I'm engaged in it and I'm focused on something. I have a gold chain, and it's a Chester and it's kind of funny, whatever. But on the gold chain is a ring. And if you look close at the ring, it's all trees. And that's on purpose. The trees represent, if you were to cut a tree open at the trunk, you would see all the rings inside the tree, right? And that's how I think about my legs. If someone were to cut my legs open, they would be able to see all the miles and hours and rings of all of the years of cycling. And this little ring that I wear on this chain has tons of trees. And I put the chain on and there's a ring on it to remind me of all the work I've done in the past. And it's kind of a moment of like, I'm now putting on cycling guy. I can now go focus. So in the sports world, they would call this having a moment where you flip a switch. And I've heard a lot of guys talk about this. We are used to doing a lot of symbolic things religiously. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing to just cue into about when you go get on the bike, when you do go to the race, what is it something that you have done that allows you to keep business where it is, Now I'm bike guy. And you're going through, right, this kind of symbolic, I'm going to put that on, you know? And so guys will give me crap. Even Preston and I joke about it like, oh, I'm putting on my Hasselhoff gold chain, you know? But it's something for me where I know I'm putting that on and I'm now going to do that thing. It's intentional, you know, and I'm going to now go focus on it. So
It's a ritual, which we talk about a lot in mental health. Is what are the rituals that signify you transitioning to something or that create a habit for you? And so, yeah, there's this process that you go through where, like you said, switches that on.
yeah. Something to think about, Blair. You know, I'd be interested to know if Preston feels this way, but when I was at my peak of traveling a lot and working in business, one of the things that I hungered the most was to leave all of that behind. And very few people know this about me. They just think, oh, he moved to Mountain Green because Snow Basin and whatever. But one of the allures selfishly for me of moving to Mountain Green was that when I drive through the canyon, it is a ritual. I turn off the rat race down below because I associate Highway 89, I-15 in the airport is I'm business guy. You know, that's just because for 20 years I would go to the airport and that's how so all of these rituals are just, you know, are ways of mentally getting in that space of I'm okay leaving it behind. I'm not going to forget business. It's in my journal. And now I'm turning on, you know, this mental focus of like, I'm going to go do that thing. So what other thoughts?
Blair.
Yeah, I would.
Oh, sorry. I just know Blair was trying to jump in.
JT, we're gonna have to look at this again right after this, just so I can write some notes.
Some of those things may sound silly or corny or whatever, but part of how I arrived at that point, like even last night, I don't know if you guys know who Mookie Betts is. He's a pro baseball player. He was interviewed recently by two guys in the middle of a game, and he was being asked about some what I would consider his rituals. And they're like, Mookie, how do you do what you do? Like, how are you batting the average that you are? And he kind of smirks, and then he says, I go through mental at-bats hundreds of times a day. And they're like, what do you mean? He's like, I have bats all over my house. And he goes, people would walk in my house and see all the mirrors and be like, this guy's super vain. He has bats and he has mirrors all around his house because at random times, he will take a bat, stand in front of the mirror, and he will mentally be in the batter's box and he will have an at-bat, right? I love that. Like that in my head is so cool to think through. This is a guy who intentionally thinks about mental at-bats hundreds of times a day. So when he gets in the batter's box, he knows exactly what to think about and to do. He's practiced the mental game of at-bats. And you look at what he's doing, you know, in terms of the numbers are unbelievable, you know. So there's something to be said about the mental processes, you know, of how we do what we do, why we do what we do, and how it allows us to perform differently in those moments where, why can I not go with the group? Why is the peloton riding away from me, you know, and why can't I respond? And to me, that's not a Blair physical thing as much as how do you access the training you've done? And in order to access the training, you've got to have a way to say, I'm not going to allow the energy right now to be spent on business or other things. I have to be present here, you know?
It's new territory.
For sure.
How does that sound to you? Like when you hear some of that stuff, even what Matthew talked about, you know, a few minutes ago, how does that hit with you?
I mean, it clicks. I don't have any rituals. I honestly don't. Like I don't like the 100% thing and kind of balancing where things are at. Mentally, I'm like, I need to spend this much time. I know this, you know, I'm going to be at work for this much time. I know I'm going to spend some work at home for this much time, but I've never looked at it like the percentage.
Yeah, I think when you change it to energy instead of time, it's a big thing because you can burn up all of your energy in an hour. You've done it on the bike before, I'm sure, many times. you can do that same thing mentally, just worrying about something, just stressing out about something. We were talking beforehand. It's probably a good point to bring it in. I saw this study that chess players, professional chess players, will burn as many calories as a professional athlete during a chess tournament. And that's the headline. And then they went into the science of it, that your brain at rest burns like 18 to 25% of your total energy that you're burning. So when you start thinking and stressing out about it, that goes up. And so they started monitoring these guys, and sure enough, their heart rates go up, their calories go up, and they eat like marathon running professionals. They eat 6,000 calories after a tournament, and they don't gain any weight because they burn that just by using their brain. So as soon as you start thinking of it in terms of that way and not just time in your life, I think it's a huge game changer.
So as I'm sitting here, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I take advantage and and tap into that mental strength? Let's use as an example something we can all relate to, on a climb. How do I take because I think I'm mentally weak when it comes to certain climbs. Like, they have my number. I get anxiety. I stress. I worry about them.
Powder Mountain.
Yeah, well, yeah, that amongst many others. I always play this poor woe is me card. I'm not a climber, but like, how do I overcome that when I come to the base of the climb, and how do I stay with the group?
Yeah. You know how Tom's ritual works, his David Hasselhoff?
Yeah.
It's call sign, right?
Uh-huh.
It's because of the business journal. It's because of the mental handling, like I said at the very beginning of this, that you're not dealing with it in the right way somewhere else, so it's going to pop up somewhere else. The ritual is an unlock that can help you if you've processed through everything else. So very similar to, like, if you don't have the legs to climb because you haven't been putting in the miles, well, you don't have the mind to climb if you haven't been doing the mental work that you need to have that space open, to have the energy there for it.
So I think, but my I need to tap into this a little bit more. Then
Go for it.
Because I feel like my mind is clear of work, my mind is clear of family. When I'm on my bike, I'm pretty present with where I'm at and what I'm doing. I'm pretty calculated on the bike on when to give effort and when not. So I guess I'm still trying to figure out how do I tap into that.
In my opinion, you just described the very problem.
That I'm too calculated?
Know that you're stressed that you're not a climber, and so you're going to worry
Okay.
how you're going to do, and you're going to get the exact result from
That's what's happening.
you worry.
Yeah.
I'm going to suffer. This is going to suck. I'm not a climber. I'm going to get dropped. And you lowered your 100 energy score to 75 before you ever got on the bike or the climb started, because you worried about it. And so, I mean, my version of what Matthew described is, right? When I know I'm going to go suffer on the bike, I fully zen out. I will literally self-talk. So this is another thing, Blair, just to share with you that people think it's hokey or whatever, but I'll tell you that I do this as an adult every day. I positively self-talk my way through all of the major things that are on the calendar, including biking, that I'm stressed about and how it could go. So as an example, the other night, Preston and I got an invite with the guy, Nathan Manwaring, awesome cyclist. Hey, let's go ride Big Mountain. Cool. We get on the bikes, right? Nathan immediately says, hey, we're going to PR Big Mountain. Heart rate goes up, stress, I'm worried, right? So because I know how I deal with energy, we're talking and smiling and talking or whatever. But in my mind, I started the self-talk. You got this, Tom. Hey, it's coming. It's going to be at the end of the ride, but you got this. You've done it before. I'll touch my ring on my chest. Thousands of hours. Tom, you've done tons of work. Just do it. Just get in your zone and do it. So I immediately go into the positive self-talk. And if I don't, the stress will zap my energy and I will get exactly what I was worried about. I'll blow up. Right? And so to combat what I know my mind normally wants to do, which is worry about Nathan dropping me and riding away and me being alone, which I was. It's still there, but I wasn't going to let Tom, the worry guy, blow up my energy store because I really wanted to climb to the top of the climb. So to combat that energy, I just know that I immediately have to go to self-talk guy. You know, Tom, you got this. You know, just ease your way into it, build into it, and if you feel good, go. And that's what happened. We kind of slowed, kind of moved in. Well, about 10 minutes in, Tom, the worry guy, was gone, and Tom, the freaking to kill this dude, you're killing it. And I don't know what my PR was, but it was by a long mile, you know? And so, does that make sense, Preston? I don't know
Yeah.
that that's the right answer.
No, I mean, it
when-
probably is. So I guess here's my next question or follow up to that. If we're all playing therapist for Preston right now, but this is real. So what am I supposed to put in my journal? Like, what am I supposed to write in the journal the day before? Like, what? Help me, guide me.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I think Tom has found his process. His process should not be your process. It's not my process. It's not going to be your process. So I appreciate your question, but I'm going to tell you, I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
I don't, you're the one that has to go and figure out, is a journal even the way that you do it? Because I don't journal.
Right.
I've tried journaling many times in my life. I've done it several different ways. It's worked kind of at times or whatever. I have business processes where I keep up with stuff or whatever, but journaling on a personal level has never really worked out for me. But the mental aspect is there in my own way. That's the way that I start thinking about it. Totally a fan of what you were just talking about. I call it in terms of like what you feed grows. So if you feed the negativity, it's going to grow. If you feed the positivity, it's going to grow. And it starts way before the climb. I kind of talked about this earlier, is every time you climb, even the smallest hill, you tell yourself, I'm a climber, I can do this. Whatever it is you want to tell yourself. I say it's got to be believable, you know? You don't tell yourself you're Toddy doing 7 watts per kilogram for 40 minutes or whatever.
Right.
Unless you are. That's pretty cool. But you tell yourself whatever you need to build up so that when you're there in the moment, I say all of the work is done beforehand. If you are coming up on Powder Mountain and saying, okay, now I'm going to get in the headspace, you're not there. You needed to be doing it yesterday and the day before. Michael Phelps and his coach called it playing the tape. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. Whenever he was in a big event, he told himself, I've already done it. It's already accomplished. I'm just now like a passenger on this train because of the hours that he's put in and the time he's put in and the positivity towards it. So whatever the process is for Blair, for Preston, you're going to have to kind of play around with that a little bit, but it's going to take some sort of upfront work beforehand.
The journal, in my opinion, the journal version of what do you do on the bike is why I wear the chain with the ring.
Mm-hmm.
It is the reminder, it's the ritual hitting my chest. When I get out of the saddle, I'll unzip my jersey when it's hot and it will hit me in the chest. And it's a constant reminder of like, you got this. And it's a ring that I've worn for years and thousands of hours.
How many
you know?
times has it hit your chest? How many rides have you put it on for?
Yeah, I mean, so it is my mental coach hitting like, Tom, you got this, you know? And so, I mean, when I go to races, I always look across, like I look around me at the top tubes. Half of the guys have, you got this, go hard, talk yourself into suffering, be present, right? We teach little kids in high school and, you know, messages that are on the bike. And what is that doing? It's positive self-talk and coaching to get you in a mind space of that very thing. I mean, it's the version of the journal in my mind, but on the bike, right? I mean, on my top tube right now, it has exactly my hardest interval session that I do every week. Even, you know, and I only do it once a week, but I leave it there because when I'm out doing anything else, I know that looking at the hardest interval session I do, that has prepared me to do everything else. Nothing I'm going to do, even a 5 or a 6 hour ride, it's not going to hurt like that interval session did. So I know anything else I'm doing, like it's a reminder, like you got this because you did that. You've done it several times. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that answers, you know, but it's little things, it's little hacks like that that I think are helpful to get you. And like Matthew said, your own way of doing it, you know, it could be.
Yeah. And in your own voice and in your own words. And it can't. Yeah, it's found, not given for
Yeah.
sure.
I think once it's habit for me, I like adding new things to some of those things that I've done. But what I have found now is that the next level for me that way is that I have 3 levels of the pain cave that I go through. And there's 3 different memories that I go to every time when I'm in the pain cave. One of them is a moment in my life when I felt shame and embarrassment. And it's one guy that I had an interaction with 20 something years ago. And it's to do the same thing. I know when I focus on that moment in that person that I'm going to get out of my pain cave in a different way because I'm channeling something from the past that's going to bring up shame and embarrassment. I know immediately I'm going to have a different level of energy. And so there are moments where you can like use hacks like that to draw on things from the past. You know, another level of the pain cave now, Blair, different because you haven't had kids. But one of the strongest emotions that's even greater than embarrassment and shame for me is trying to think about my children when they were born. I don't know why, but it's just, there's something even greater than like shame and embarrassment. And for me, it's like this pure love of like your kids. What would you do for your children? It's another way of just a hack of like using memories from the past mentally, you know, to channel different ways of being present on the bike or kind of getting yourself back, you know, to a spot. So.
Yeah. I think one of the things that that I'm going to run into is I run healthcare facilities. They don't stop. You know, I could get a call at 1 a.m. and I got to take that call and I got to see what's going on. So, you know, you said business book, you close it and then you're moving on.
Yeah.
I don't have a move on.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm going to go on my ride. I could get a call or I could get something important, like a patient dies or something like that. I gotta figure the problem out and get it reported or whatever needs to be done. That's kind of what was going through my head as we were talking about that. I was like, huh, it's kind of.
What's the version of what we just talked about on the bike in those moments? What is the mental work, pre-work you could do so that even if you get the call in the middle of the night, you can deal with it? Matthew can chime in here. You can deal with it and not have it zap 100 energy to 40 when you have a race tomorrow morning that's going to need 50. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like how do you not get hijacked, Matthew, for him? Right? Because I mean,
Yeah.
I use that term because this morning, frankly, I was hijacked based on a relationship in my life, not in a bad way. They didn't even know it. I self-hijacked my own emotion because of a relationship. And in those moments, the last thing I want to go do is work out. I was like, I wanted to talk because I was hijacked. I was like, I don't feel like I have energy to go do these intervals, right? So those are those moments where it's like, whatever, work just hijacked my energy. Like,
Well, it's funny
right?
you say that. Even like today, one of my best employees put in her notice and said, "Hey, I'm finishing up this weekend." And on the ride today, I was like, I'm just going. I got to figure out how I can get past this. And it was, I couldn't do the intervals that I was going to do. And so I just looked past it and said, no, I'm just going to ride.
That's awesome. That's exercising that muscle. What do you, Matt? What's your thoughts, Matthew, on that? Just
Yeah, had a couple bouncing around. If I like glare at you or I'm winking or something, I got some sun in my eyes, so it's nothing more than that. But I think that there's so many. I love that we're doing this. I think that continuing this discussion is going to be huge because there's multiple ways to do this. That's why I do therapy, or maybe therapy is why I think this is because I meet with someone multiple times to work through these things because it is such a process of let's try this and let's try that and maybe this can work out. So before I forget this thought, I will add to this. You may take tons of stuff away from this and then go try them. And you may be like, they were full of crap. None of that worked. Like, they're the stupidest guys I've ever talked to. We may be, but don't take that as failure of your efforts or that there's not a solution for you. There is a solution. You just got to keep trying stuff. So I have a couple thoughts on this, but I think already in my head from the things we've said, I'm like, I could give you 2, 3, 4 more right off the top of my head of ways to do this differently. So that's one small thought. But I think the hijacking comments is very similar to the bike. If you think I'm a good climber and then you're there on the climb and it happens, then you're there and you're there for it. If you think work stuff will be okay, I can manage this stuff. It's people have quit before and we've made it through it before. And the impact of that is the same impact as I'm a bad climber and you start getting negative about it. So if you can automatically think, I've got this, it's going to be okay, then that's going to lower it already. So that preloading, pre-work, and that's another journaling process of going through and saying, you know, it's going to be okay. I was thinking, I am supervising interns now, and I have one that's stopping in August, and I had one that was going to start in August, and then that one fell through because of their scheduling and life stuff. And then I found another one that was going to start at the end of August. So it was like, okay, it still works out pretty good. And then Tuesday, before hard Scrabble night, I got notice that they are not going to start with me as well. And I think that was stressful, and it definitely brought the day down in a lot of ways. And I thought about it and started stressing and everything. But then I've done it enough times that automatically I started going to, it's going to be okay. We're going to find a way. Worse things have happened. I've been through worse things. And if you haven't, then other people have survived things way worse than this, and their life has been okay. And so there's this library of thoughts that then I can say, I need to go on bike with these guys. It's what I want to do. It's a part of my life. It's important to me. So this is all going to work itself out. I don't know how. I don't have the answers. That's not a part of it. So I'm going to go there and do it. So I think it's some of that preloading and the library of thoughts. I'm a big toolbox guy. I might have brought this up last time I was here, that there's no one size fits all answer. We've talked about several times. And so I think you need these drawers of positive affirmations and these drawers of physical workouts that you do and everything. Like one type of riding on the bike doesn't make you a good biker. It's about going hard sometimes and going easy sometimes and so forth. So I think you need this library of ways to positively think about yourself and your work and your worth and your ability and the impact of negativity on your life.
It's good.
Couple thoughts.
It's awesome. When you got that notice from her, were you disappointed?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's real.
Mm-hmm.
What's the answer? Can you force her to stay?
Tried already.
Oh.
Had a conversation on the ride.
Yeah, with her. Yeah. So, I mean, from someone who's owned businesses and been in business for a long time, what I can tell you is that my most constant business partner for the last 25 years is disappointment. It's part of business, you know. You can't have stoke without struggle, right? And that's why I love it. That's why I love building businesses and doing it. It's why I love climbing stuff. It's why I love hanging out with Preston and doing stupid rides so often, you know. I really love the mountain top. And what I've started to, over time, just fall in love with more and more is just the process of just knowing, like, if we never had disappointments, then would we really appreciate, you know, the summits? You know, if we've never bonked before on the bike, can we really, truly appreciate, like, really good fitness? Do you know what I mean? Like, really good fitness is amazing because you know what it's like to not be fit and to suffer and to hurt, you know? So if it makes sense, and, you know, and Matthew alluded to it, I love what he talked about, just like this bank of drawers. I have file cabinets full of disappointments. We could spend hours but you'd be mad. You'd be like, I'm not getting any return on Tom's investment. Right? It's not worth dwelling on. But one thing I know about you, Blair, is that your positivity has become one of your greatest strengths. You know, even recently we did a double Francis, which is 5,000 feet twice on the mountain bike. And I remember, you know, we were riding together and it's hot and we're tired. And I'm like, dude, it is hot out here. Do you remember what you said?
I don't remember at all.
You said, it is so fun to be outside today. And I remember thinking, Blair just reframed real time. We're hurting right now. And he focused on positivity, right? And so I was like, Blair knows positive self-talk, right? So however you do that on the bike, you just got to get capable in your bank of drawer of tools to know how to do it in business. And in my opinion, it's the same principle. It's the same wrench that you're going to pull out of the drawer, which is I can't control her. All I can do is control how I handle what she's chosen to do, which is have a good attitude. I'm going to find somebody else. Business isn't going to be burned down. Yep. I'm not going to get fired. What's interesting, though, is that most employers in the moment, if you folded, if you said, she's gone, you panic, you call someone and say, hey, she's leaving, and you freak out, what do they think about Blair?
He can't handle it.
Probably not going to fire you, but in all likelihood, they probably go, Blair doesn't have the bank of drawer of tools to deal with this thing. Right? And so that's just something for you to think about. Like, it's an opportunity to build the drawer of tools to be able to draw from when the next time it happens. And I promise you,
it will happen.
If not in the next month, in the next couple months, it's just part of the deal. So when you think about just that moment, what are the tools that you've learned on the bike over years of just what it takes to be successful on the bike that you would say you can use at work?
It's interesting.
In a career? It's
interesting you ask, because I was as we were talking, I was thinking about it. I'm way better at on the bike than I am in just life in general. Like if I'm on the bike, usually my mind is pretty good, and I can ride, as long as I want. Intervals may not be as good just because I can't hit that upper spot if I'm thinking about something else. But usually, if outside circumstances like heat or cold, things like that I thrive on that on the bike. I'm like, hey, it's great. Like this is great training. I'm pushing through this, and I'm making huge headway on my fitness.
Do you feel like you can get up even better when it becomes even harder?
100%. I think about
give me a
people.
little headwind. Give me a tougher condition than normal, and I'll even step up more to do that.
Well, I think about other people. I'm like, these guys can't suffer like I can, and I'm like, I got this. It's freezing. They're probably colder than me. I do it way better on the bike than I do in life in general.
Well, and how much practice have you had on it on the bike to get to that point? Because earlier on, Tom said it's not a physical thing, which I rode with you for the first time. It's not a physical thing. Like the gears are there. You've got it for good. So there's a mental aspect here. There's another part of your life. And it's interesting to me that we're talking about this biking limiter, and then the whole conversation has been how to deal with stress and how to deal with life and professional. And that's the perfect conversation that we should be having, is there's this blend here. And I think that the immediate thing you can do is start to think, I will figure this out, just like you do on the bike. I will get to the point where this doesn't shake me. I won't think about this eventually. It will get better. Yeah. And that immediately is going to put you on the path you need to be on.
It's cool.
I'm interested to know from Preston, because I feel like as a friend and watching Preston this year, he's had a huge quantum leap jump on the bike. What have you changed in the way you think or the way that you approach, I don't know, the climb,
it's ketones,
the suffer,
I haven't cracked the code on ketones.
Have you seen a mental shift though?
No, I think that's the problem still. I've seen the mileage ramp up. The desire is as strong as it's ever been. The dedication, all of those things are there. Like we learned last year that if we have a plan and if we follow it, it works. Yeah. So I've been really dedicated to my training plan. But I'm deep in my head right now. Yeah, for sure. So I
but we got to double click on this, dude.
I haven't cracked the code. I mean, look, here's the deal.
You just said, but last year we had a plan and we followed it and it worked. And so for you,
but I'm comparing myself to, the peers, the guys across the table from us tonight. And maybe that's part of the problem, but we ride with all these guys, or at least I feel like I ride with all of the guys that are much stronger, and maybe I let that get into my head too much, that I'm like, they're all going to have to wait 6 minutes at the top of the climb for me, and I play this I don't say this out loud. Well, actually I do. Sometimes I say it out loud too. Hey guys, sorry, I'll be back here. I'm coming, and so I probably self-sabotage or something.
Your feed grows.
Yeah. I mean, I heard you say that earlier, so it's definitely on my mind about it all. Like, we're doing Iron Lung on Saturday, and it starts with an 8-mile climb. And I'm like, okay, it's 100-miler. It starts with an 8-mile climb. I'm going to be solo by mile 6. I've already told myself that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me not want to do it in a way, or to cheat
For sure.
and to skip the climb and meet them in Mountain Green, and then I can roll with them for 30 miles.
Oh, bro. I think if you take 3 key bottles of ketones, I think you're just
So I've got some mental work.
say more, Matthew.
I've got some mental
say more
work to
right
do.
now. Preston's on the couch.
Oh, dude.
He's in the
I really
therapy
love that this
office.
is going public. I mean, this is awesome.
It's great.
This is real, man.
No, it is. It is.
I feel
real.
like maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think there's one guy, if they're honest, who didn't sign up for Iron Lung or show up to a race where inside them somewhere is having some of that.
Yeah.
The difference in this is just my thought, and Matthew, I would love to respond from his perspective, but everybody has the thought, but very few people know how to now deal with it appropriately so that it doesn't lower the tank.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I do. I'm just saying when you sit and talk to most people, there is a bit of fear and trepidation of like, I'm about to go suffer, and how's my suffer going to equate to their suffer? But a lot of guys who I think are successful, they know what to do with the thought.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do with that thought, Matthew, when you think about those moments?
I think of all the other hard times and how it worked out. Like you said, with the banging on your chest of the ring, or, the disappointment locker that you have, or filing cabinet, or storage office space somewhere, whatever it's full of. I think of, we've been there before and it's been harder. Pretty much every time it's hard, if you're going hard enough, everyone gets to that point where it's like, I can't do anymore. And getting through that is so crucial. And most of it is, I don't know that. That's one of my key tools is let me find out if I can't do more. I don't know until I try. And I know that the energy that I'm putting into thinking I don't know is taking away from that. So I'm going to put energy into it, and I'll find it at some point. The end will be there. And so I'm just going to put into it some of the thoughts.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, if you don't have anxiety rolling up to a big climb or a big event, especially if there's strong people there, and even the strong people worry about what about the other strong people, or what if it's not my day, or what if I'm not feeling good or whatever, it's still, you said, you're thinking about it. It's on Saturday. It's Thursday night, right? Well, it's time to change that script. It's time to start telling yourself, I can do this. I've been there. I've done it a million times, And at the end of the day, you're going to do the best that you can, and that's going to be what it is. So go find that and don't take away from it, because every negative thought you put is taking little bits away from that and taking little slivers.
And what's funny is that 8 miles is my favorite 8 miles in the
I've
county.
seen you do that 8 miles many times.
Like I love it. Like I feel like it's almost my segment, even though I'm not the fastest on it. I just feel like it's mine. So
It's your
I don't
home
even
court
know.
I love
advantage,
it.
bro. It's your home
it
court
is my home
advantage.
court. I
Old
know
school
every
Basin road.
pedal stroke. I know every turn, but it's just like
I think we're our hardest critic. And so in that regard, I think you're being super genuine, with yourself about it. But from a friend who has spent a lot of time with you, I don't know that there's a better sufferer. But, and Matthew would know who said this, but someone really smart, way smarter than I, said something, that I caught on to years ago about the pain cave. And it was, suffer once, but don't suffer again. Don't put yourself through the suffering. Like, you're going to suffer on Saturday, Preston. Like, don't suffer before you go suffer.
you're right.
Do you know what I mean? And,
Yeah.
and Matthew probably knows who said that. And, you and I,
It's a Buddhist idea.
exactly. And so maybe you can comment on that a little bit, but there's something about the miles. And I mean, I don't know, Preston, you're down like 30 or 40 pounds. Like you suffered way more than a lot of people on the bike. Like what's in your drawers and banks and filing cabinets is as much as most people at our age, if not more. Do you use it? Do you think about it?
I don't know. Apparently not, right?
It's time to start opening up. out there.
Maybe
I
a
guess
tattoo, bro. Maybe we tattoo a filing cabinet like on your hand.
No, just a wrench and
We'll get
like
you a little-
screwdriver.
I've
Little
got
gold
some,
charm for your gold
I've
chain.
got some ideas.
Maybe a postie, like a
opposed.
teardrop of like a hammer right here, bro.
yes.
No, I mean, I'm joking, but I am being serious. Like from someone who can, who closely watches what you do, dude, you just kill it. You're working hard out there. So
We don't need to turn this into that, but
I think we should group hug, bro.
no, yeah. So I've got some work to do. I can, mentally for sure.
Blair, what else is on your mind?
Man, it was just so much. Like I have so much to take from this. I don't know. I think actually, are you okay if we switch a little bit?
100%.
So my main goal right now is point to point. That's all I'm thinking about.
Yeah.
I've already started thinking about it.
6 hours,
Yeah.
30 minutes.
6 hours and 30 minutes. I
Yep.
keep telling.
Yeah.
I've told everybody that's a cyclist that knows point to point, I'm doing it in 6.5 hours or less. And that was actually from Silver Rush 50. I was like, you know what? I got to start now.
Yeah.
Um,
Why do you tell people? Because this is a mind hack. When you told me, I was like, again, super impressed. Young 20s. Blair is cued into something about, and I'm going to call it accountability and talking
why I do
about and visualizing the very thing that you want to do. So why do you tell people?
It's just for that accountability. If I tell
Yeah.
people that I'm going to do it, I want to hold to it. I want to prove that I can do it. So, I mean, telling my coach that I want to do 6.5 hours, it was like, all right, we're doing it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. The accountability goes a long ways for me, just to make sure that people know what I'm doing. And it's probably human nature. Just we want to prove ourselves to peers and other people. And it's in no way me saying, yeah, I'm fast. Like I'm faster than you. It's just like, hey, I'm going to try and do this in 6.5 hours. You want to support me with this? and I like the people saying, dang, that's going to be fast. You can totally do it. And if people tell me that I can do it, I'm like, oh, I could probably do it.
Yeah.
We did that at Lotaja last year. And we had a time goal, and we had each feed zone, we had a time stamp of when we had to roll through that feed zone. And we were within it every single time by like a couple minutes. And I just remember telling Tom multiple times, dude, we are on pace. Like it was awesome as we saw it start to come to fruition. It was going to happen. I'm like, we're going to make this happen as it got closer and closer. So, I mean, I would recommend you do something like that too, because it totally was powerful.
Yeah.
By saying it out loud, Blair, has it forced you to change behavior and habits?
Longer rides. I don't know. Not like off the top of my head, no.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's been like, oh, I got to work for this.
Has it forced you to do anything though, like Preston just mentioned, like, okay, if I'm going to go 6.5, I really got to break this down into segments. I mean, have you spent time on the profile on the website?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know, like all this stuff, right? I mean, I think so having a goal like that and saying it out loud, in my opinion, it does force you. You may not ride longer, but you are thinking about it more, right? And I think that's the mental stuff that Matthew is referencing, that so many people think I need to do more and more physical, but you're going to have physical outcomes and benefits, but it's the mental part of it, right? When Keegan Swenson broke the Leadville record and then he showed his top tube, I knew that he was thinking about it mentally more than, if not, doing the physical work, right? He had mental checklists of what he was, preparing to do and accomplish and visualizing those things. So, by the way, that very exercise of I joke about it, but calling your shot, the accountability. My biggest business and career finish lines, I did that very thing. In fact, the biggest one, which was at 21, I wrote in my business journal when I started it, I'm going to retire at 42. And I actually, the company that I sold at 38. And whether I was ahead or not ahead, the point is that when I wrote it at 21 and started telling people, it forced me to back into the behaviors. I had to go to school. I had to learn certain things. I had to get mentors. Last year, Preston and I had multiple people, coaches, help us get ready for Lodija. It forces you to line up the things that you need to do, including getting coaching and help and knowledge to achieve those things. And so there's so much brilliance behind you going public with a goal. I think that most people aren't willing to do it, right? It is interesting that so many people have life goals, but very few people want to tell other people or talk about them openly. In my opinion, it's because they're not willing to be disappointed if they don't. And because of that, they'll never do the habits and the behaviors and the things that they need to line up actually getting it done. It's putting the action and the effort behind the goal. And so anyway, I think it's cool. When you said that the other day, I'm going to go 6:30. So what is about that? What is it about P2P that in your head, you're just like, that's my thing. That's what I'm chasing.
I mean, the mountain bike has always been my thing. That's been the beginning.
Yeah.
That's kind of my starts of cycling. And then I did 6:49 2 years ago. So it's like, I can shave 19 minutes off. I got to get it down.
And when you did that, it was 8th in the pro category.
Yep.
Amazing. That's awesome.
Just got to figure something out there. Keep cracking the code.
Yeah. Yeah. Matthew, what else would you say on that?
Yeah, I would say the calling your shot idea puts you in that positive frame mindset instead of then the negative. So you're spending less time thinking about what if this goes wrong or what if that happens. You're spending more time thinking about how is it going to go right and what am I going to do to make it right. So it automatically puts you on that pathway towards positivity rather than worrying about all the negative parts of it. And I think, though, there's a big benefit in saying this is where I'm pointing myself, and then where I end up is less important than the work that I put into it. So allowing myself to say, because you said 42, you failed actually. It wasn't 42, right?
That's right.
So in some way, though, it's whether it's earlier or more or faster or whatever, the outcome is always going to be the outcome. You could do 6:20 and that would be amazing. But the idea is that it puts you on that train of thinking, how am I going to get there and everything. So I was thinking, translating that over into some of the other themes we've been talking through is what are the things you need to do to call your shot in your business and the other parts of your life, in your nutrition. You mentioned the transition here, and we've been talking about PTP, and I think another big part of this that we brought up in the text was what's going on with nutrition, and we've been joking about ketones, but like actual other foods, and then what's going on in sleep and all those other areas. How do you call your shot in those areas and say, this is how I'm going to show up and accomplish that?
It's awesome. What else? What else is on your mind?
There's so much, but that's probably good.
Matthew, what are you aiming for? Where have you pointed the ship?
Oh man, it's changed a couple times this year. At first, it was Lodija was the big goal at the end of the year, and then in the same crazy way that I came upon Lodija, I've learned more and more about ultra cycling, and that's where I end up because I spend hours. And I have gotten better at suffering for minutes on the bike. I've done some big intervals for my first time, and that's been fun. But I still would much rather go and do 6, 7, 8+ hours hard. And so I'm going for Hoodoo 500, which is in a month from now. So it's 520 miles here in southern Utah. And it's going to be a blast, I think. Everyone else is like, that sounds crazy. But
yeah.
So that's the big goal. And then Lodija 2 weeks after that. So depending what kind of shape I'm in, we'll see how Lodija goes as well.
Cool. P?
Yeah, just loaded you. Just
Yeah.
loaded you trying to chase your goal that you've thrown out there for us.
Preston, though, I want you to just outline, like, Lodaja for you this year is special because
Yeah.
of why.
So I have two sons. One is returning from Puerto Rico in 12 days, and he's avid cyclist. We all know Mitt, or many of us know Mitt, and he wants to do Lodaja. So he signed up, and so he'll have exactly, well, I guess 4 or 5 weeks to prepare for Lodaja. He hasn't seen a bike.
So sick. That's gonna be awesome.
If anyone can do it, I think it's Mitt. And then his younger brother, Major, who's 17. The three of us are doing that together, and all of the MGCC boys are joining our category. So we're gonna, ideally, in a perfect world, we all ride together the whole thing. But as we all know, lots can happen during that race. But it will be fun to roll out with the boys and my boys. And the reality is, I'm not sure how many opportunities we'll get where all three of us can race in the same category together. So
That's so cool.
It'll be fun.
Is that the 4 group or what?
Yeah, the 4-5s is the only way we could make it work, because I've got because he's 17, and Mitt is essentially was a 3, but and I'm just jumping in the 5s, so whatever. So anyway,
That's my A race if it's going to be your guys' year.
well, it's my A race. You're flying. You're not going to have any problems. You're doing great.
It's awesome.
I'm excited for your P2P.
I'm working for Team Niederhauser. I'll be their head domestique that day for sure at Lodaja. I'll do P2P too, because I have to watch, after the fact,
6:30.
a 6:30 happen.
6:30.
Yep.
So yeah, it's awesome.
I'm gonna see you come in the finish.
Yeah.
It's even better.
Yeah, I feel like several hours later, after he's had a full meal and a nap and all those things. So it's been a fun year. It's been a blast. For our listeners, when we did this back in February at our first ambassador camp, everybody had a plan.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody had an idea. Joe Hansen, who's an awesome, ambassador, his bike got stolen, and so his year changed. He's in California doing summer sales and earning money so he can buy another bike. Heit Stromberg, who's super strong and talented, he's crashed several times and had injuries, and that's the theme of life. That's why I wanted to have this discussion, with Blair about your career, because that is what life is like. You make a plan, things blow up, they don't turn out the way you want to, but it's how you respond. It's how you get back on track and do the things despite the disappointments and the things that have occurred. And that is the allegory of biking. I think that's why we all love it so much, because there are times when you're the victor and there are times when you're like laying on the road and you're broken. And, all of us have had that, and that's the same in life too. So anyway, it's, BrainStoke was never about like all the glory of, winning podiums on the bike. It was, how are we going to be real in our pursuit of the bike, so that the bike and cycling can become how we cope with all the other stuff, So any other parting thoughts from anyone?
No, I think this was awesome. This was good. It was fun.
I feel unloaded and enlightened. So it's
Good.
great.
Do you?
I do.
Well, we're gonna have to re-listen and re-watch, right?
Preston and I are going to get on a phone call later tonight and be like, what do you think about this?
Just know that you may get a request for funds from Matthew.
You may see a bill.
Yeah. Here's your invoice, Blair.
Oh,
Preston.
No, all I've learned is I now need to sit down with Matthew twice a week.
We'll pencil it in. We'll do it up Old Snow Basin Road.
There you go.
Twice a week.
There we go.
exactly.
I'd drive up for that.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening. If you had your daily dose.